Yes, sir.
So, just from a historical perspective, over the years, this isn't a new issue that our pay is less than other cities, and due to the commitment of the employees and the love of the city, evidently working with each other, there's some intangibles that makes it attractive to be here. And we've relied on that over the years. But there's been times, I remember one year we did a survey study and a salary survey. We had a consultant and we gave 30% raises. I mean, cumulative, it was that bad. And that still didn't get us where we needed to be. So we've taken some steps at times, so we did that sort of the flat 3%, and then we take a big step. That happened at least once, maybe twice, maybe not as big the second time we did that. So, my perspective is the decision making for this kind of thing needs to be at the closest to where the information is, that the best decisions are made close to the action. So it's hard for us to step back at our level and say, $2 is too high, it should be $1 or $1.50 or whatever. I mean, I've done analysis. We know from looking in certain departments, it's been very evident that, when we don't have police on the streets, then that becomes a real problem real fast. Sadly, when you said you're 2 or 3 guys or ladies short in public works, that's not as apparent to us because, it's not a safety, it's not a health and safety kind of issue. Same thing, with the fire and whatnot, and we know it all led to the fire department needing to go full-time. So I think, I appreciate the work that's gone into it, the analysis. I think, the money is well spent to do it. But my position on it is going to be that they changed the rules. Like used to, we would vote on this at the same time and whatnot. And they changed the rules to approve the budget first, the expenditure budget first, and then the tax rate afterwards. And the thinking behind it was so that once you set your expenditure budget, then you were compelling yourself to bring in the revenues to fund it, to make good sense. So that's why it's done that way. So I know we're not voting on it tonight, but I am not. To me, either, and I'm just as red as the state of Texas is, and no new taxes, and read my lips and all that. But at the federal government, they can print money, and at the local government, we can't print money. So the revenues have to exceed the expenditures in the long run. And if you're not willing to bring in the revenues, then you got to cut the expenditures. And if we can't hire people, if we can't pay people enough, then that means there's got to be fewer positions. If there's fewer positions, that means there has to be less services. So it all has to stay in balance. So if we're not willing to cut, then we've got to be willing to raise the revenue to do that. And there's things at play other than ad valorem taxes. We all know that. Our EDC, was bringing in $100,000 a year. Now it's bringing in $300,000 a year. That's due to investments in these businesses and the QT, all the restaurants, the 4, 5, 6 restaurants we have now that we didn't used to have. To increase the sales taxes to relieve the burden off the ad valorem tax. But my message is just going to be either we pony up next time and set the tax rate where it needs to be to fund it, or we start cutting expenses, because in the long run it has to balance out. And it's not even that many years ago, but we didn't do the 5-year budget. Marvin, is that like maybe 3 years ago?
I think 1 year ago. Y'all directed.
That we started doing that for this very reason, so that we could have this big picture look at all this and how it all is going to work out. But keep in mind, based on the 5 years that Marvin has presented us, that's going at that, what do you're calling it, the vote rate? Voter approval rate each and every year. So at whatever point you're not willing to do that, then his 5-year plan starts to not, go into the black by year 3 or year 4 like he shows. So, those are my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I've said it before that, we've got to be able to live within our means. I understand what Steve's saying, and I think when Linda was here, I think we did do 5-year plans. My concern is it's not only, we've drawn down our reserves, from what I understand, down to the bare minimum, but historically, through the year after you set the budget, there always seems to be something that comes up during the year that we're amending that budget several times during the year. And where is that money going to come from when that emergency, or whatever it is, comes from? I just have a hard time seeing a negative number that is that high, and not knowing that we had the ample backup like we've had in the past to rely on it if something does come up. And now we're down to the minimum, so correct me if I'm wrong, Marvin, there's really no money to go to the well for reserves anymore, and keep them, whatever the mandated amount is.
Yeah, no, it's below it.
If you feel comfortable that throughout the year that's not going to come up, but I don't know where we're going to get that money if it does come up. And it always seems like it does. It's always some year, sometimes 2 or 3 times a year, we're amending the budget for something. We've gone to, we're drawing money from the TERS, from EDC, and stormwater to help supplement salaries in this. And I'm not saying we don't need to do it. My concern is still what are we going to do if that emergency comes up during the year?
We've still got money in the
mandated funds.
Well, what's that?
And we don't have the emergency funds to draw to. Where do we get the money from? I'm just throwing that out.
I mean, we've still got how many days in reserve?
About 57, I think.
That's not ideal, but it's still, how much money does that actually come out to?
Right now, it's at $1,059,000.
So if we have an emergency that has to be addressed right that second, I think we as the council, to me, quibbling over this amount of money to try to get our employees where they need to be, that's not going to bring us, how much, if we left nobody at a raise, how many days do you think that would add to reserve?
I mean, gave nobody a raise.
Yeah, if we just left every salary where it is, how many more days would we have in reserve from 57?
Well, we'd have to build it up even with that.
But I'm just saying, that amount of money for the raises, it's almost insignificant. 2 extra days in reserves, 3 extra days.
Yeah.
It's almost insignificant. Maybe it's more than that. It's still not going to be 50 or 100 or anything. Bottom line,
Are you talking about this budget?
This budget.
Or I'm talking about next year's budget, one that we're looking for right now.
No, I'm talking about that. Well, yes, I'm talking about.
Come on, say December, something comes up that we haven't planned on. It seems like they're always in front of us saying we got to amend the budget. And okay,
I'm just saying,
where does that come from?
Given a 14% raise that averages out in general fund and 18% raise in water fund, if we took both of those down to 0, we do not have, if that impending emergency comes up, that money's not, we're not spending millions of extra dollars tonight on employee salaries. We're trying to get people.
Well, you wouldn't use the word quibbling. I haven't heard any quibbling going on, so I'm not sure what you're referring to. But
yeah.
The other thing though to keep in mind is, just like was said, you're running 2 people short on average. This budget assumes 100% people on the books all year long. We know that's not the case. There's positions that are open throughout the year, so that does start to whittle that number down some. And that's, in the past, we've adopted, budgets, 50,000 in the red, and then by the end of the year, we're in the black because of things like that. Even taking into consideration things